Welcome back to another episode of our show. Tonight's story is going to be one that chills me to this day, and it's called They Whisper. It's my name from the walls. It's one of those stories that you never forget once you've heard it. As usual, this happened to a friend of mine, and they requested to remain anonymous. This all started when she was about 18 years old and living in a house with her parents and brother. She lived in this house throughout her childhood, but she didn't realize how dark it really was until she got a little bit older. The home had been in the family for many years, but it was an old Victorian-style home that had been passed down from her great-grandparents to her grandparents, and to her parents. The home had seen a lot of death over the years. Her great-grandparents died there, grandfather died there of a heart attack while working on his car in the garage, and just a few years before all this happened, her uncle had taken his own life inside of the home. He was only 27, and no one could understand why he did what he did. This led to many other family members dying of similar means. There were quite a few suicides in the family. So this home saw a lot of death, especially when it came to young people. I don't know if any of you have ever noticed this or experienced it, but there are certain places that seem to attract death or bad things happen. I remember being at a small town fair when I was younger, and this woman came up to me while I was playing games and told me that the swing that I was on had taken someone's life several years ago. Another example would be like in schools. Say you go to class and you sit down, and something bad happens every time you go to that class. Or maybe you visit a place, and something always goes wrong whenever you're there. Whatever it is, some places just attract unfortunate circumstances. This house seemed to be one of those places. And after hearing this story, I completely understood why her father wanted to sell it and move away. But before we get into that, please make sure to smash that like button. If you love these kinds of scary stories and want to hear more, subscribe to the channel so you can be notified every time we upload a new video. Her parents tried to ignore what had happened in the past, but they began to feel like their bad luck was rubbing off onto them as well. Their friends and family were beginning to think that this house was cursed. She didn't believe in curses or any of that stuff, but there were strange things happening in the house that she couldn't explain. She remembered odd footsteps in the middle of the night and whispers coming from the walls. One day while she was cleaning the attic, she found a hidden room. She doesn't know how long it had been boarded up for or why it was even there in the first place, but the door was a solid wood and made with old-fashioned nails. As soon as she stepped inside, she felt extremely uneasy and turned the lights off so she could better see in the darkness. It was obvious that this room had once belonged to a child. There was a rocking horse in the corner and children's books on the floor, as if they had been ripped out of their beds and thrown across the room in a hurry. She remembers thinking, who was this child? Why were they taken from their bed? What happened to them? These questions ate at her for months. She asked her parents about it, but they claimed to have no idea what she was talking about. They said that there was never a child in this house, yet there were pictures hanging on the wall that proved otherwise. She would come home from school and run up to her attic room where she could explore the house without being followed or having her curiosity stifled by her parents. After a while, she became convinced that the only way she could find answers to her questions was if she spent the night alone in the room. She packed a bag full of food, blankets, and pillows and made her way up to the attic. She could still hear her parents yelling at each other through the floorboards, but she found comfort in the sound. She thought that if they knew she was in the attic, they would come up and stop her from spending the night. She set everything up and waited for the sun to go down. The room was pitch black, so she lit a few candles and made herself comfortable on the floor. The rocking horse creaked back and forth as if someone was sitting on it, but she tried to ignore it. When she heard footsteps outside the room, she froze. She listened intently to hear them come closer, but they stayed outside the door. Then she heard a knock. Startled, she put the candle down and backed away slowly. She could hear whatever was on the other side of the door, breathing heavily, and then she heard her name being whispered. First she thought that it was her imagination, but then the voice came again, closer this time. The footsteps came closer. She could hear the boards in the floor creaking under the weight of whoever was coming. Then the doorknob began to turn. Terrified, she crawled behind the bookshelf and waited for whoever it was to enter the room. She could hear them walking around and talking in hushed voices, but she didn't dare move or make a sound. She could feel their presence near her, and it felt cold. She could feel the air around her getting colder and colder, but she didn't move. Then she heard the rocking horse creak back and forth. She looked over and saw that it was moving on its own. and that's when she knew that she wasn't safe. The voice spoke again, but this time, it was right beside her ear. It was whispering directly into her ear and saying her name. She screamed and ran to the door, flinging it open and racing down the stairs. She could hear the voice following her, getting louder and angrier. She didn't know what it wanted from her, but she refused to go back upstairs. She slept in the living room that night, curled up on the couch with a knife beside her. Every time she closed her eyes, she could see the rocking horse moving back and forth and hear the voice whispering her name. She didn't sleep at all that night. In the morning, she went back up to the attic to clean up and get rid of her things. She didn't want to stay in that house another minute longer than she had to. When she opened the door, the room was empty. The rocking horse was gone and the bookshelf was pushed away from the wall. Confused, she walked over to the bookshelf and touched it. It was cold. She could feel the coldness seeping through her fingers, and that's when she noticed the scratches on the wood. Someone had been clawing at the bookshelf, trying to get out from behind it. When she told her parents what she had seen and experienced, they reacted as if nothing had happened. They claimed that there was never a rocking horse in that room and that the bookshelf had never been moved. But she knew what she had seen. She knew that there was something in that room with her, something that didn't want her to leave. Even though she had proof that something was in the house with her, no one believed her. She moved out as soon as she could and never looked back. Thank you for watching. They whispered my name from the walls. If you enjoyed this episode and want to hear more stories like it, make sure to check out the playlist I made for you guys, where I collected all of the most popular stories from this channel. You can also click the subscribe button to be notified every time we upload a new video. If you'd like to submit a story, you can do so through the link in the description. Also, don't forget to check out our social media to get to see some really cool stuff, including bloopers, behind the scenes, and even early access to some episodes. That's all for me tonight, and I'll see you next time.